can you kind of bring us up to speed with recent developments in regard to United's simulator situation and how things are going?
Sure, absolutely. United Rentals has been a great partner for all those years and has been an early adopter to try to find solutions to surround their customers with that make sense to them. And what we're so delighted about as a technology company is that they were willing to look right across the horizon at those things. So the products that we developed at the time, which were those video game-based e-learning products, they are still on being delivered today through the United Academy. We're thrilled at that. As a matter of fact, their adoption had over doubled in the last 12 months as a result of COVID, because there was no other alternative to classroom training. And that's been very common right across the spectrum of training and how it's delivered. Obviously 2020 was a very difficult year. From the perspective of for the rental industry in general, globally, all the capital expenditures froze because lots of projects were on pause. And everybody has been kind of waiting. Training, no different. So many the branches were closed. IPAF struggled with the same thing with their branches, which led to the massive adoption of their e-learning product. So coming out of 2020, did two things. We learned a ton. It was bad for everybody as far as, hey, wow, where's the world going to go? What are we in? But then it got really interesting is, wow, look at the modalities that we can now interact. Let's look at different ways of learning and exchanging information. And our simulators have gained such dramatic interest because you can actually, instead of crowding around a piece of equipment for your 15 minutes of fame, you're actually getting an opportunity to groove behaviors on a technology that's been very prevalent in the aerospace and the military for decades, but is now just being brought into this, and people don't want to go back. So we see 2021, as I know United Rentals and our other rental partners globally absolutely see the adoption, acceleration of that adoption, and what 2021 and beyond holds. So I hope that makes sense.
It definitely does, and you touched upon so many other points I have written out here for you. We don't have to go through direct figures, but you did say you saw a massive increase in the use of simulators and e-learning, both from United Rentals and IPAF. Do you have a ballpark figure? Was it double the amount, triple? Can you kind of walk us through how much of an increase you saw?
Yeah, so I think this came up in actually that other event that Nordy actually shared, that they had, I think, over 100% increase quarter over quarter of the adoption of the game-based e-learning as an alternative to the classroom environment. IPAF, I think they were maybe even greater than that, like maybe 700%. I think Peter Douglas might have mentioned. Which is exciting, and by the way, United Rentals also looked at modalities like this to do in-class training, but just remotely, and that was quite successful too. So what we're really seeing in our readings and from great publications like your own is that the world isn't going backwards; it's going forward. And sometimes it takes an event like this to accelerate those things, to make you realize, why did we do it that way? And why are we still doing it that way? And why would we ever go back to doing it that way? And we feel that we're quite well positioned.
Yeah, so it's very safe to say that you see this moving forward and the acceptance is becoming more broadened across the industry then.
Absolutely.
And so, and sadly, it was the pandemic that brought it more to the forefront. But was there any reluctance from the industry and users, trainees about using AR, VR?
Well, great question, because obviously when you're putting something on your face, there's a hygiene issue. Very first thing we did was came up with a communication strategy with the help of Melinda to make sure that people knew that we were capable of making these things cleaner than anything that they would ever put on their face. So people started to go, okay, you know what? This is safe because it can be sanitized. And what was more interesting is that particularly the simulators could be used in a kiosk type environment. And we did a massive pilot with the ironworkers where they all had individual kiosks. So there was never any interaction or cross-pollination. a potential virus because of you can actually separate out. And yet the facilitator or trainer can be watching on a screen a distance away. So I think the combination of confidence and comfort, that the hygiene on the headset and the machine itself, as well as the idea that you can actually get trained and assessed individually rather than a group setting around a physical piece of equipment, was very compelling.
And so that's a nice segue into run me through just some benefits and reasons why AR VR training and simulator training is here to stay, and possibly if there were any improvements during this pandemic that will stay on as we move forward.
Well, I think the trite answer is it's absolutely here to stay. It's not going away, and it's only going to get bigger. And it's getting bigger in all kinds of industries. I'll just make a quick distinction between AR and VR. AR has a real value in that it overlays information on the real world. So if you're learning to change the tire of your car, you put on a headset, you can see the tire and the car, and it'll give you instruction because it knows what you're looking at. And so you don't have to, I have a feeling for lawyers like me is that that's how they're going to, like, anyone can be a lawyer now, just put on a headset. I'm desperately worried about that. In VR, we own the whole environment. So we create a world that you will live in, and we can do anything we want in that world. So that's a differentiation of those two things. And then applying it to simulation, where you can actually do something physical over and over again with real world controls in a world we create in a safe way, but without putting you in harm's way, but put you into dangerous situations that can groove behaviors, calm behaviors. I think now the realization of how powerful that is in relation to the training and assessment that was done before, where you get your 15 minutes on a machine, somebody assesses you from 70 feet below, and somehow that assessment on that day lasts for 3 to 5 years. I think now what we've really discovered, in talking to customers and all of the people in the industry food chain, is really two key objectives that they see coming out of this type of technology. One is that regardless of the card in your pocket, they can actually do a snapshot of you and your capabilities before you get onto a dangerous piece of equipment. And that's revolutionary. So now a GC or a main contractor can go, whoa, wait, I know your guys all have tickets of some kind they got at some point in the past. I just want to know. It's kind of like I always equate it with going through the airport going like, yeah, I don't have a gun, you're good. You know what, just walk through that thing, because I just kind of like to know for myself. And then the debunking of how you measure previous incidents, that's happened recently, where looking backwards is no indication of what's going to happen in the future. I mean, that's like, I didn't have a heart attack last year, so smoke and drink my way to next year. It's like, you might want to take an EKG, and we can measure what you actually are like, and then that'll probably inform the probability. The second part that has been so exciting is the realization by industry that, so wait a minute, you're telling me that you can actually improve the efficiency of that operator? Because when they're all doing something, they might be the best plasterer or the best window guy or the bricklayer or whatever he's doing, but maybe he's been building patio homes for the last 5 years, but he's never had to be off the ground. And as Brad Baylor always taught us, bad things happen when you get off the ground. So now he's still doing that well, but now he's operating a very big, dangerous, potentially dangerous piece of equipment. How do you know that he's capable of operating it safely, but also getting it into position to efficiently to do his job? And an anecdote that was told to Owen and I by a GC recently was they also had a gravel and road building division, and they had this one guy, and he just for every single day, they didn't know how he did it, but he always had about 20 to 30% more production. And he's driving the same roads. He's doing there's a train of these big trucks with pops and dump trucks and all that stuff. And they finally started to track him. He never does anything twice. He backs in once, he pulls out one. Everything he does is efficient. It's safe and efficient. And they realized what they had to do was to get all their other guys to behave like him, and all about doing the motion once, getting into position once. and in the right order, moving the equipment safely, but at its most efficient speed. And what they discovered, and what we've done, is that with our simulators is that's a digital representation of our best guy, because that you climb in that and it will groove you into that best guy, gravel guy. And that, if you can change, the efficiency of a job site by 10%, that's what GCs care about. So the ticket in your pocket or where you got it is interesting, but not bringing risk to the job site and creating efficiencies that improve profitability, that is probably two of the major things that Owen and I have really been discovering in our outreach during the pandemic and beyond.
And that's probably something you can speak on a little bit further, because you just did that partnership with Align JV. So that, from my understanding, you're providing MEWP simulator training for 30-minute assessments with the operators. That's correct. How's the response been, and what are they saying? And do you see this type of application of using assessment-based solely continuing with other partnerships and GCs?
Yeah, that's a great question, because, we always were about, the training the guy and can we certify him on a simulator rather than in a classroom. And it was always that schism between those old way of doing it, our way of doing it. And sometimes the simulator was always an and. It was like, well, now I got to sit in the classroom, take theory, then I got to get on a simulator, and then I still have to get assessed on a real piece of equipment. So this is just an extra step. But when we looked at it through the lens of the people that really care about that competency and, that efficiency and safety, which we call competency, or proficiency, in fact, we realized that that's the lens that the industry needs to look at it through. And so, industry leaders like the Align JV, they've, talking right from the top of the food chain down, you realize a lot of different things. They can't have incidents. They can't have events. This is reputational. This is British government. And anything they can do to show that they're keeping their workforce safe, they're doing it, and they're spending their taxpayer money efficiently, because they're, these guys that are getting onto this stuff are ready to go when they're actually on the real equipment. Because it's a controversial project, the HS2, right? They're digging in rich people's houses, and you do not want those people upset. They're already upset enough. So we really, really believe that forward thinking and looking at it through the lens of the different stakeholders is where our products will fit, not just in the training center as an alternative to doing it in the old way. And that's happening all over North America as well.
It's really exciting, I think, for our industry. And the milestones you guys have reached over the last few years are just incredible. I mean, they're stacking up. I'll need a whole page in the magazine to list them out. But let's talk just a little bit about the debut you had at BAUMA with the universal motion base that you can implement with telehandler, forklift, and so on and so forth. Where do we stand with that technology and that simulator, and what's to come?
Well, actually, it was ConExpo is where we debuted it,
Wow.
if you recall. BAUMA in Germany was. Yeah. Both wonderful trips, other than the pandemic breaking out right while we were at
That's kind of why I blocked it from memory.
Yeah, I think a lot of people did, Lindsay. So very exciting, because one of the biggest challenges, Linz, is with traditional motion-based simulators, or simulators of any kind, is that syndrome, cyber sickness, as it's most commonly referred to. And it's the idea, the disconnect between what your eyes are seeing and what your body's feeling. And it can be very acute, well beyond just car sickness or motion sickness. And that's why simulators and their adoption has been retarded in other industries besides aerospace and the military. They don't care if you're throwing up all over yourself, they'll just keep doing it to you. Whereas, in the trucking industry, forklift industry, in the MEWP industry, if the thing is making you ill and you can't use it, then it's only a small part of the whole training spectrum. Whereas what the problems we're solving with some very interesting new intellectual property that we're developing in concert with a couple major universities is to obviate that through the tuning of the headset and the motion itself and tricking the body. And like what we did with the MEWP is what, you believe you're 50 feet off the ground when you're not. Well, how do you do that without having that thrust feeling? Well, we trick you. We jar you, and then we rumble you, and then your eyes are seeing this. And as we all know, as anyone's experienced, the MOOC sim is like, no, my turn's not over. I got to get back down to the ground. Just not unplug the guy and realize he's never left the ground. So that's the seated motion base is a continuation of those things. And where that's going to get exciting is because it has its own challenges. So a forklift accelerates, so it has a motion forward. And if you can't, you have to trick the body in the experience to feel that it's actually thrusting ahead. And we'll do that. Then we tune our actuators into making sure that it's called yaw. So if you're pivoting, which a forklift will do, you can do that sensation. You have to replicate that, or at least trick the body into replicating it, and then the mind keeps going. All these things have to be very finely tuned, and I probably disclosed my patents already, but no, I'm just kidding. But that's what's exciting about the motion base, because with our quick release conversion kits, it can be a rough terrain forklift, and within minutes it can be a counterbalance forklift, or it can potentially be a school bus or a truck. Class 1, semi truck. It can be an earth moving piece of equipment, and all it takes is change the game, as it were, and change the controls, and you're on a completely different piece of equipment, all on the same universal motion base. So I can't tell you everything that's happening, but 2021 is going to be a very big year, and as soon as we can, you'll be our first phone call.
Well, thank you. So I'll have to add another page to the list of milestones.
Exactly.
Jim, you keep kind of touching base on a key point or a key term of game. And obviously, headsets and gaming have kind of gone hand in hand for a decade or so. Do you think that this type of technology could help bring in our workforce, younger workers who are, kind of hesitant to join this industry, thinking it's maybe a laggard when it comes to the latest technology? Do you think it could help, bring up the workforce numbers?
Absolutely. We've got a couple of major pilots just kicking off. One of them is with a learning institution, a major one here in Alberta, which is going to then spread to several others. They're seeing this in a couple of different ways. That there's a new generation coming through that are very familiar and comfortable with technology. They grew up with it. While guys my age are retiring, these guys are coming into the industry and they want to learn differently. They want to be safe, they want to be good at it. And these institutions also need that throughput to get them job site ready. You might have a ticket for being a sheet metal worker, but how do you collapse that job readiness on the site to work on real equipment? This is such an easy adoption. The other one is, the trade unions have a big upside down problem where they've got a lot of their union members are retiring with giant pensions, and there's nobody filling that. So this has been a very powerful tool for them to say, we're committed to your success, we're committed to your safety and your competency and getting you top dollar for your skills. And this is the way we're going to train you. And that also applies to non-union as well. We have a major pilot kicking off with a giant institution that represents a lot of the non-union trades in Western Canada. So you nailed something very important, is that it's new rules and new tools. It's a new generation. This whole, and I go back to the COVID experience of 2020. 2020 years from now will be seen as a seminal year because it made everybody do things differently. It's going to impact travel. It's going to impact events we attend. It's going to impact all kinds of things. How you publish your magazines and your shows, how you reach your customers and measure their adoption. All of those things are going to be driven by things that we learned in 2020. I mean, you guys are already leading edge, but and this type of technology for training and assessment's no different,
Yeah. And I just have a few more things, Jim. Let's just talk about costs associated with this type of technology. I would imagine it's gone down over the last, 5-10 years. Do you see that continuing? And are these more affordable nowadays for companies to invest in?
Yeah, I mean, certainly we've really examined this because we were kind of the leader in the industry to building full motion VR MEWP simulators. So we're actually, I think we're the only one in the industry right now. I think there's an OEM that's built one that doesn't move and that has that cyber sickness challenge. But ours is, we're constantly refining it to bring price down. So the price of itself, if you just wanted to buy it outright, has dramatically come down. The headsets in particular, the powerful laptops, gaming laptops that need to be able to run the programs to get the frame speed to create that deep, rich environment that triggers that learning on that fight flight. All those things are coming down. Actuators to move it, etc. But what we've also done, in addition to just examining how we can reduce the price point of outright expenditure, is to try to think about how we deliver this in what's called a SaaS world. And that's software as a service or a solution as a service. And what we've landed on, it's been very popular, is what's called a hardware-enabled SaaS model. So instead, you don't even have to buy the thing behind me. We just deliver it, and you pay on a monthly basis. You either sign up for 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, whatever, and that, all of those things bring the price down. But that way, if the headset changes over time, we replace it with the one that we're programming to. You don't have to be stuck with the last year's model of anything, and look forward and say, hey, that guy's got the new one. Why didn't I wait? Secondly, a real powerful, it's probably buying a car rather than leasing it in a weird way. Why, if you lease it and after 3 years, you just keep paying and you keep going because you love it. But in our case, the product's always improving. They don't bring you a new Chevy every year. But what we do is we always make sure that that product is meeting the demands of the technology advancements, the rules and legislation. One of the biggest challenges, Lindsay, is that you go out and buy a simulator and it maybe was geared to a set of ANSI rules or IPAF rules or whatever it was doing. Those are probably bad examples because most aren't. They're just practice tools to just give you familiarity before someone actually teaches you in the real thing. Our product is always mapped to what are the standards that we have to meet or exceed, whether it's ANSI, ISO, CSA, IPAF. All of those institutions we've work with their standards to make sure that we were mapping to that. So if there's a major change, and I know Melinda, we were just talking about it earlier about the ANSI standards change where supervisors, that guy, well, how do you make sure that the product is updated so that you are always using the thing that's actually applies to the legislation and the certification? The other piece is it's affordable. Because if you're just paying by the month, then you can build your business around it. And this really came out of the work that our colleagues in the UK at Serious Labs UK learned, is that talking to the customer, that small training center can't afford a big capital expenditure. But if he can build a business around a fixed monthly cost and say, well, all I got to do is train 10 guys and I've got that thing, and the other 30 guys I train is all for me, that really struck a chord. That combined with the thing always being on, always being ready, full white glove support, is a business model that we think is going to be really applicable for our product because it's been adopted in so many other ways. We subscribe to everything now.
Absolutely.
Cable TV, they just come and put it in and you pay for the channels. And if you change, they come and take their cable box away and then the other guy comes in, you don't buy that thing down at Best Buy anymore, right? It doesn't work that way.
It's like Peloton. It's like anything. Everything is a subscription nowadays.
Exactly. Now, Peloton makes you buy the bike. We don't.
I would love it if you could give me just a little bit of maybe what's next for Serious Labs. I think we've covered a lot of it, but it sounds like you have a lot of partnerships in play, a lot of pilot programs about to set foot, and the telehandler forklift modules and whatnot. But anything else we should maybe tease or be aware of?
I might have alluded to a little bit of it in our chat, but I'm reluctant to say too much right now. There will be news coming out this quarter. Very, very major advancement, major project that I think your entire industry is going to be very interested in hearing. Very exciting for us, obviously, as a company. It's our MEWP simulator really proved out the art of possible. You know, we have our forklift products that we're working on as we speak, and we look forward to launching. But there's more to come beyond that, because we could evidence the efficacy of what we're doing at a price point that people could realize, you know, helps the industry. That's made us rather popular. So I'll be delighted to share that with you, and I can share more.
I understand. Is there anything else then, Jim, that you'd like to highlight or add?
You know, thanks, Lindsay. I never really thought of adding anything. I just want to say to all your viewers and readers, 2020 was a very challenging year for all of us, and it's all made us look inwards a bit, look upon our humanity. What do we care about? How do we treat each other better? How can we do things better? All of those things. I think we all learned a lot. Probably drank too much, but while we were drinking, we learned a lot. And I hope that we all carry those forward. The safety of people, the efficacy, the efficiency of people, the importance of human life, and how industries need to evolve, and that old way of doing things is not necessarily always the best way, but you can incorporate the old with the new and make it twice as good. Those are all the things that we learned, and I suspect a lot of industries have learned that. Let's keep that going, and let's keep that inertia of what we learned going forward. Let's not ignore it.